And writing a quadratic equation given the roots and the leading coefficients. The roots are just the answers. So if I started out and I had an answer of x equals -5, I want to figure out what factor that came from. Well, when we did that, we did it backwards, so we had to move this over here. If x equaled -5, we would have had x plus 5 equals 0. Right? I'd move my 5 over and make it x plus 5 equals 0. If my answer is -6, same thing. I'd have to move my 6 over and I'd say x plus 6 equals 0. So, in factored form, I would have had x plus 5 times x plus 6 equals 0. The leading coefficient is 5, it says. Leading coefficient is the number in front of your expression. That means there's a 5 here. Now I want to write the quadratic equation, so I'm going to multiply this out and then multiply by the 5. I'm going to rewrite that. 5 times x plus 5 times x plus 6 equals 0. Do your foiling first. You could multiply by the 5 here first, but then your number's bigger, so do the foiling first. X times x is x squared. Then I'm going to have a plus 6x and a plus 5x, and then 5 times 6 is 30. So I'm going to have 5 times x squared plus 11x plus 30. Combining my like terms in the middle. Then I'm going to multiply by the 5. So 5x squared plus 55x plus 150 equals 0 is going to be my quadratic equation whose roots, whose answers are -5 and -6, and leading coefficient would be 5. Number 14, write my quadratic equation whose roots are 1 and 3 and whose leading coefficient is 3. So again, if my answer is x equals 1, the factor that it came from, because I have to move my 1 to the other side, would be x minus 1 equals 0. And if my other answer is x equals 3, it would have been x minus 3 equals 0. So I would have had x minus 1 times x minus 3 equals 0. Leading coefficient of 3 tells me there would have been a 3 out in front. So if I have 3 times x minus 1 times x minus 3 equals 0, again, I'm going to FOIL out my quadratic part. X times x is x squared. X times minus 3 is minus 3x. Negative 1 times x is minus 1x. Negative 1 times a negative 3, positive 3. Combining my like terms, x squared, negative 3 minus 1 would be minus 4x plus 3. There's still the 3 in front, and so my final step, multiplying everything by 3, 3x squared minus 12x plus 9 equals 0. Then is my quadratic expression that would have answers, roots of 1 and 3, and whose leading coefficient is 3. And one last one of those. Number 15, write my quadratic equations whose roots are 6 and -5, whose leading coefficient is 3. So, if x equals 6, my factor, moving my 6 over, x minus 6 would equal 0. If my answer is -5, I've got to move my 5 to the other side, so x plus 5 equals 0. So x minus 6 times x plus 5 would have equaled 0 for my factors. My leading coefficient is 3. 3 in front. Foiling this out. X times x is x squared. My outside, positive 5x. My inside, negative 6x. My last, minus 30. So x squared minus 1x, which is minus x, minus 30, is what I get when I FOIL x minus 6 times x plus 5. Still have that leading coefficient of 3, So multiplying, I get 3x squared minus 3x minus 90 equals 0. There it is.